right, here is my new tool, my planer, a Dewalt. Let's just look right here. DW735 13-inch planer. So I've been thinking of getting one for a few years, and I finally decided, instead of trying to rely on friends to go to their house to do things, that I would get one because I have needs for it now. Okay, and so here is some of the wood I ran through. So my one son, we cut a bunch of trees, and these are some of the boards that were put on a sawmill before I had my sawmill. So that's not a 3/4 board. So I had cut these to be 1 inch thick on my sawmill because they were 4x4s. And then this edge I put on the joiner. And then I ran, I did this edge and one of the sides, one of the faces on the joiner. And then I put it through here on the planer. And now I have to use a table saw to clean up the other end. But the thought was to make 3/4 inch boards that are basically 3.5 inch wide by around 4 foot, 5 foot high. So I really do like the finish it put on it. Very nice. So he needs like 8 boards. I have like 4 boards for him. We need to make some more. Now this was a board that I think was joined by someone else. It was pretty flat, so I put it through the planer, and that's about a 3/4 inch board. And that needs the edges cleaned up. And that's going to be for his son, whose trees those are. He wants to use these to make some shelves and stuff. So here's a board that was, I think, 2 inches thick. So I put it on the sawmill and I cut it this way. So now I got like a little over a 3/4 board, but it's kind of wavy. So this side was cut by my sawmill, and it doesn't look too bad, you know. So it doesn't look too bad this way. So I'm thinking I'm not even going to join this side or use a joiner. I'm going to put this one face down and plane, or join the top of this one and clean it up, and then clean up the edges. And I'll put it in this pile here for my son to use for some shelving boards. These are all ash, so they're a little bit harder, so I'm trying to go slow, take small cuts. Let's see what happens. So here's my concern. This was the outside of the board. It's sitting for like 5 years. And it looks like some of this is stained, but some is dirt, and I don't want to dull my blades. I might take the belt sander and just clean up this before I put it through. Okay, so this comes with a built-in fan that would shoot the chips out, but it also comes with a dust collection system and an adapter to go to my shop vac. So this sucked up most of the chips. I mean, there's very few chips anywhere. I mean, that's probably like all the chips there are. But I'm gonna use my sander, belt sander, my dad's belt sander. So I think I'm gonna hook up the vent system, turn that on, because that does throw a lot of dust. So here's one of the things I haven't figured out quite yet. Where is this? Is how to set the height of my first pass, right? Let's take a look. You know, if I set it at this end, obviously when I get to that end, it's gonna be way too much of a cut. So I guess I gotta pass like the whole board through first to make sure it fits, and then go slowly from there. I'm not sure. Let's have a look. It's looking mighty fine. There's one spot here that I don't want to do anymore because it's getting pretty thin. Let's see how thin it is. This side's looking good. All right, where are we? So yeah, we're at 5/8 instead of 3/4, but that's what it took to get that piece good enough for shelving. And you know, my son's making some shelves that don't really, you know, they're not going to the county fair or anything, so I think this would be a nice board. I think this is the other half of that board. This was a cut on my sawmill, and it's got some waves in it. So what do? Do I put that on a joiner first? It still doesn't have a whole lot of thickness to play with. This side we definitely have to throw on we have to use yeah, that's a lot. Yeah, I think I got it. So if I join it, do I not join it? Definitely gotta like belt sand that side. So let's start there. All right, this one came out pretty nice. I think this is 3/4. Let's have a look. Trusty tape rule. Okay, get it lined up. 3/4. Yep. This surface looks pretty nice. And I think just the very bottom, you can kind of see. I think the board's just warped there. The rest of it is good shape. All right, we just got to do the edges, and that'll be another nice shelf board for him. Let's have a look at the next board. Kind of see it flares out at the end there. So realistically, it's got a pretty big, I think it's because of this part down here. And the question is, you know, if I squared this up, And then that's a big crack, so is it even worth keeping it there? Should I just like cut it and a miter saw, cut that off, and then that'll be wide enough to go through my planer, and I think it's going to take out a big part of the bow that's a problem. I guess we got a little bit of stuff up in here. Let's check the other side. Alright, so if we only go down to where we're going to cut that, this is reasonable. A little bit. I think that's what we're going to do. Okay, we got that down to a 3/4, and let's just look and see how level we got it. That side's looking, yeah, it's got a bit of bow to it. You kind of see. Let's try the other side. Should have a concave. This should be a convex. Yeah, not too much. All right, well. So you can kind of see that it's bowed up in the middle. And if I put it through, it will push this down and not take the bow out. So here's the other side. This was rough cut a long time ago by someone else on a sawmill. You can kind of see that that is very uneven. So is that even a good surface to go off of? Or should I just run it through a couple times as it is this way, clean up that top, and I don't know. My thought was that this is the thickness that I would put underneath here, so that when it ran through, it would not press this down. That would stop it, so it would take this high spot off. But you know, when I look at, if I made a sled, it's already a high spot there. Yeah, I don't know. All right, just because I'm new to this and this is therapy in my retirement, I would like to run this wavy part face down and see what happens. Is that what I want to do? I guess. So what have we learned from that exercise? It's doing a little bit here. Yeah, it's done towards the end. So it's not really doing in the middle. But if I was a double-sided tape, this thin piece here, I'm thinking it would take off some of this and not the ends. That's what I'm gonna try. All right, so double-sided taped this thin. It's on 1/8 this, 3/32. So we're gonna back this off. So we want to raise it. There's 1/32, 2/32, 3/32. Let's see what happens. Let's have a look. You can kind of see it took off in this section here. And our board says it's that the bow in the middle, I think, is gone. So I think we're going to flip it over, take off that spacer board, and clean up the top, see what we get. Let's see how easy this is to take up. Well, that's pretty straightforward. Huh. All right. Whoa! Holy Lord of bejesus, I just emptied that. That's a lot of sawdust coming in. Hoo-hoo-hoo! I think that's all from that one board. I thought I emptied that yesterday. At one point I did. All right. Well, good to know that when sawdust wood chip starts blowing out of that, it's plugged. That was interesting. That was full, so it was shooting chips everywhere. So that's chips maybe from one board. I don't know. Maybe more. All right. So now we got to put this on because that made a whole bunch of sawdust dust in the air. We had no problems before with that running, but once that's not running, this gets pretty dusty. Let's have a look. All right. So we got some more to do on this side to get it flat, and then we'll flip it over and get it down the size. All right, we're at 7/8, not all the way to 3/4. Let's just see what we got here. That side looks reasonable. Looks like it has maybe just a bit of a bow, or a bow downwards in the middle. So here's my thought. This is a pretty nice live edge, and it's pretty straight. So I'm gonna leave this at 7/8 in case my son wants to use a live edge, glue other boards to it, and then we'll plane the whole width flat. So I'm going to leave it at 7/8 and mark it as such, and we're just going to give this a good edge on the side of the table saw. All right, here's the last board in the series that I have to plane before I use the table saw, and you can see that's a pretty bow that way. I'm thinking this paneling, well, it would fit right underneath there, like that. So on the other side, let's flip it over. All right, from this side, yeah, I think what we need to do, that's like about that much. I think I'm gonna use this piece on the bottom side right there. And that's gonna help us take out that middle section. And well, let's try it. It seemed to work okay last time. All right, well, it looks, at least that side of this straight board, which have a very reliable straight edge. Let's see. Well, maybe not. Something doesn't add up there. All right, let's get the level out. And here's our 4-foot level. And it looks like this end here is probably the part that's still a little out, but that part looks good. Let's flip the board over and clean it up. All right, this is a little over 7/8, but I'm gonna keep the live edge, so I want it to be a little thicker. Let's see how we did. Flatness. I think that it happens over here where the bow is, because that's pretty flat. But over here is where it is. All right, that side's good. Let's check the other side. That side's looking good. Yeah. All right, and the surface looks pretty good. There's little spots that didn't get taken out, but if I were to go down to 3/4, they would. But I want to leave this just cleaned up enough so that if we want to cut and glue pieces, then we do a final plane to get it all level. That generates a shitload of wood chips. All right, well, that was just like fun. Don't know why I didn't do this earlier. Kind of like, I don't need a replacement, but people always say, I should have had my knee replacement done earlier. I should have bought one of these earlier. This is fun. All right, now we got to set up to get a straight edge on these boards.